My dear sisters and brothers, many of us are fasting from food and drink, but very few of us pause to ask, am I truly fasting with my heart? Because Ramadan is not a diet plan, it is a divine invitation to transformation. You can stay hungry all day and still walk away unchanged if the habits inside your life remain untouched. And sometimes, the most dangerous mistakes in Ramadan are not the obvious sins, but the quiet routines we have normalized. Subhanallah, how often do we guard our fast from a sip of water, yet we allow our tongues to wander, our eyes to scroll endlessly, and our nights to be consumed by distraction instead of devotion. We feel proud that we completed the fast, but we rarely ask whether our fast was accepted. Ramadan was never meant to be just about surviving the day. It was meant to awaken the soul, to soften the didu, to realign the bidudu with Allah. So today I want you to listen with an open heart, not with guilt, but with honesty. Because some of the habits we carry so casually may be silently draining the barakah of our Ramadan. And if we don't become aware of them now, we may reach Eid thinking we succeeded, while the true spirit of Ramadan slipped gently through our fingers. My dear sisters and brothers, one of the most subtle realities of Ramadan is that the fast is not only broken by what enters the mouth, but it can be weakened by what exits the heart. Many of us approach the fast with beautiful sincerity. We wake up for suhoor, we abstain from food and drink, we feel the physical hunger and thirst, and we believe, and rightly so, that we are fulfilling a great pillar of our deen. But there is a quieter conversation that Ramadan invites us into, a more delicate self-examination that asks what habits are quietly draining the light of my fast, while I am not paying attention. Because the Messenger of Allah gently warned us that a person may gain nothing from their fast except hunger and thirst. This is not meant to discourage us, it is meant to awaken us. Ramadan is a month of mercy, but it is also a month of awareness. It is the month that exposes what we have normalized in the rest of the year. And sometimes the most dangerous habits are not the ones we clearly recognize as wrong, they are the ones we have become comfortable carrying into our Ramadan days and nights. One of the most common of these habits is the casual use of the tongue. How easily the tongue moves while the stomach remains empty. A small complaint here, a bit of gossip there, a sarcastic remark, a sharp response when we are tired and hungry. We tell ourselves, I didn't eat, I didn't drink, but the fast of the tongue is just as sacred. Ramadan trains us in restraint, not just from halal food at the wrong time, but from harmful speech at any time. Every unnecessary argument, every moment of backbiting, every careless word creates a subtle crack in the spiritual strength of the fast. And the reality is, hunger can make the tongue more impulsive. When the body is tired, patience becomes thinner. This is exactly why Ramadan is designed the way it is. It reveals to us what still needs purification inside. If irritation increases during fasting, it is not a failure of Ramadan. It is Ramadan showing us where our work still lies. The believer who benefits most from Ramadan is not the one who feels perfect, but the one who becomes more aware. Another habit that quietly steals from Ramadan is the unguarded gaze. In our time, the eyes are constantly flooded with images, notifications, reels, and endless scrolling. A person may spend hours carefully avoiding food, while spending the same hours consuming content that hardens the heart. Ramadan is meant to create space in the audible, a softness, a tone with Allah. But constant visual noise fills that space until the soul feels heavy even while the body is fasting. The eyes have a fast too. Lowering the gaze is not only about avoiding the clearly haram, it is also about protecting the heart from overstimulation, distraction, and heedlessness. Every image we consume leaves a trace. Every moment of mindless scrolling takes a little piece of the quiet that Ramadan is trying to build within us. And the danger is that this habit feels so normal now that we rarely question it. We only notice the emptiness later, when the sweetness of worship feels distant and we cannot understand why. Then there is the habit of treating Ramadan nights as social entertainment rather than spiritual opportunity. Of course, Islam is balanced. Joy, family gatherings, and shared iftars are beautiful parts of our tradition. But sometimes the balance quietly tips. The nights become heavy with food, long with conversations that carry no remembrance, and light on sincere standing before Allah. We stay awake for everything except the moments that would nourish the soul. Ramadan nights are precious because they carry a special nearness. The heart is softer after a day of fasting. The distractions of the day have quieted. It is during these nights that the soul can rise if it is given the chance. But when nights are consistently filled with noise, screens, and overindulgence, the gobobu becomes sluggish. The body feels full, but the ruh feels hungry. Closely connected to this is the habit of overconsumption at iftar. Subhanallah, we spend the entire day disciplining the nafs, and then sometimes in the first 10 minutes after adhan, all that discipline dissolves. The table is full, which in itself is a blessing, but the way we approach it matters deeply. When iftar becomes excessive, rushed, and purely indulgent, it shifts the spiritual tone of the evening. The Sunnah teaches us gentleness at iftar, gratitude, presence. But the modern rhythm often pulls us towards speed and excess. And what happens afterward is very telling: heaviness in Taraweeh, difficulty focusing in Quran, sleepiness in moments that were meant for connection. It is not that eating is wrong, it is that excess quietly robs us of spiritual energy we did not realize we were losing. Another subtle habit is the delay of sincere tawbah. Ramadan softens the heart, and during this month many of us feel moments of regret, moments of longing to change, moments where we think, after Ramadan I will fix this part of my life. But Ramadan is not meant to be a waiting room for change. It is meant to be the launch point. Shaitan is chained, the environment is blessed, the heart is already tender. When we repeatedly postpone repentance or meaningful change, we risk letting the momentum of Ramadan slip away. There is also the habit of comparing our Ramadan to others. In the age of social media, we constantly see curated glimpses of other people's worship, their perfectly organized Quran schedules, their beautifully set iftar tables, their nightly routines. Comparison quietly breeds either pride or discouragement, and both are spiritually draining. Ramadan is deeply personal. Allah is not asking you to have someone else's schedule or someone else's capacity. He is asking for your sincerity in your circumstances. When comparison enters the heart, it distracts from presence. Instead of asking, is my heart closer to Allah today than yesterday, we start asking, am I doing as much as that person? This shift is subtle but powerful. It moves the focus from sincerity to performance. And Ramadan thrives on ikhlas, quiet, unseen, deeply personal devotion. One more habit that often goes unnoticed is the neglect of small, consistent deeds in favor of dramatic bursts of worship. At the beginning of Ramadan, motivation is high. Many of us create ambitious plans, multiple juz daily, long night prayers, extensive routines. And for some people this works beautifully. But for many others the intensity is not sustainable. After several days, exhaustion sets in, and slowly the routine collapses, leaving behind frustration and guilt. The prophetic way emphasizes consistency over intensity. Ramadan is a marathon of the heart, not a sprint of the body. Small, steady acts done with tiwam often carry more barakah than large bursts followed by burnout. When we ignore this rhythm, we sometimes set ourselves up for spiritual fatigue that makes the rest of the month feel heavier than it needs to be. And perhaps one of the quietest habits of all is simply moving through Ramadan on autopilot, fasting because it is time to fast, praying because it is time to pray, reading Quran because the schedule says so. Outwardly everything looks correct, but inwardly the Eid or Gura is not fully present. Ramadan is meant to awaken consciousness, taqwa, that living awareness of Allah. When actions become purely mechanical, the transformative power of the month becomes muted. Presence is what turns routine into worship. A single sincere moment of turning to Allah with full awareness can outweigh long stretches of distracted action. This is why slowing down, even briefly, to renew intention can be so powerful. Ramadan is not asking for perfection. It is inviting awareness, honesty, and gentle but real movement toward Allah. So as we move through these blessed days, the question is not only, am I fasting? But also, what is my fast producing inside me? Is the heart softer? Is the tongue calmer? Are the eyes more guarded? Is the debanyi more meaningful? These are the quiet indicators that the fast is alive and nourishing the soul in the way it was always meant to. My dear sisters and brothers, once we become aware that certain habits may be quietly weakening the spirit of our fast, the next step is not to feel overwhelmed or discouraged. Ramadan was never meant to burden the believer with despair. It is, above all, a month of gentle return, a season where Allah opens doors that felt heavy the rest of the year. The purpose of awareness is not guilt, it is awakening. And the beauty of our deen is that even small, sincere adjustments can bring immense barakah into our Ramadan. The first heart-centered change begins with intention. Before we rush into fixing actions, we pause and renew the why behind our fasting. Many of us started Ramadan with good intentions, but as the days pass, routines take over and the nitol debado that can become slightly distant. Take a quiet moment, perhaps after Fajr, perhaps before Maghrib, and consciously remind yourself, I am fasting for Allah, seeking His closeness, His pleasure, His mercy. This simple renewal softens the entire experience of the fast. When intention becomes alive, actions naturally begin to align. The hunger feels more meaningful. The patience feels more purposeful. Even the tired moments carry sweetness because the heart remembers who it is striving for. Intention is not a one-time declaration at the start of the month. It is something we gently refresh throughout Ramadan, like watering a plant so it continues to grow. Another powerful shift is learning to guard the tongue with mindfulness rather than force. Many people try to control their speech through sheer willpower, but the prophetic way is softer and more sustainable. Before speaking, especially when tired or irritated, create a small pause. Just a breath. This pause gives the heart time to catch up with the tongue. Over time, this becomes a protective habit that preserves the dignity of the fast. Replace what is unnecessary with what is beneficial. If the tongue is used for dhikr, for kind words, for gentle responses, it becomes naturally less available for harmful speech. Even simple phrases, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Astaghfirullah, whispered throughout the day polish the heart in ways we often underestimate. The goal is not silence for the sake of silence. It is purposeful speech that carries light rather than heaviness. Equally important is creating intentional boundaries with the eyes. In our time, this requires conscious design of our environment. If the phone is always within reach, the scroll will almost always win, especially in moments of fatigue. One practical change is to designate small screen-free windows during the day, perhaps the first hour after Fajr or the last hour before Maghrib. These windows allow the Ido dew to breathe. Fill that space with something nourishing but gentle. A few pages of Quran with reflection, quiet dhikr while doing daily tasks, even sitting in stillness for a few minutes and making heartfelt dua. The goal is not to create pressure, but to reduce the constant noise that prevents the soul from settling. When the eyes consume less distraction, the heart naturally becomes more receptive to the sweetness of worship. The nights of Ramadan also benefit from thoughtful restructuring. Many people feel guilty when they hear about long night prayers and intense routines, but the prophetic guidance teaches us balance and consistency. Start by protecting at least one meaningful act each night. It may be 2 focused rakahs prayed slowly. It may be 10 minutes of Quran read with presence. It may be sincere dua in the quiet before sleep. What matters most is not the size of the act, but the presence within it. When the heart tastes the sweetness of one consistent nightly connection, it begins to crave more naturally. This is far more sustainable than overwhelming the body in the first week and feeling spiritually exhausted by the middle of the month. Another gentle but transformative adjustment is the way we approach iftar. Instead of rushing into the meal, create a small moment of stillness when the adhan is called. Break the fast slowly, consciously. Feel the gratitude. Whisper a dua with presence. Even pausing for 30 seconds before the first sip of water can completely change the tone of the evening. After eating, aim for moderation that supports worship rather than hinders it. This does not mean depriving yourself. Ramadan is also a time of blessing and sharing, but it does mean eating with awareness of purpose. When the body feels light, standing in prayer becomes easier. When the stomach is balanced, the mind is clearer for Quran and dhikr. One of the most heart-centered changes we can make is to build small islands of Quran throughout the day rather than relying on one large reading session. Many people struggle because they wait for the perfect quiet time that rarely comes. Instead, attach the Quran to existing moments in your routine. A few pages after Fajr, a few while waiting before Maghrib, a few before sleeping. This approach removes pressure and creates a continuous relationship with the Tawheed across the day. The Quran then becomes a companion in Ramadan rather than a task to complete. Even listening attentively to recitation while following along can bring deep tranquility to the heart. Another powerful protection for Ramadan is sincere, frequent istighfar. Not only for known sins, but as a general polishing of the heart. Astaghfirullah softens what we do not even realize has hardened. It removes subtle barriers between the servant and Allah. Try weaving it gently into your day while walking, cooking, driving, or resting. The tongue moves lightly, but the impact on the bidobaliubu can be profound. It is also important to protect the heart from comparison by consciously returning focus inward. When you notice yourself measuring your Ramadan against someone else's, gently redirect the thought. Ask instead, what is one step closer to Allah that I can take today? This keeps the journey sincere and personal. Remember that Allah looks at the hearts and the effort within circumstances. A mother caring for children, a student with exams, a person working long hours. Each one has a unique path through Ramadan. What matters is not uniform output but sincere striving within your reality. Finally, build a daily moment of quiet muhasaba, gentle self-reflection. Not harsh self-criticism but honest check-in. Before sleeping, ask yourself softly, where did I feel closest to Allah today? Where did I slip? And how can I do slightly better tomorrow? This simple practice keeps Ramadan alive in the heart day after day, because the goal of Ramadan is not perfection. It is movement, it is softening. It is returning again and again with humility and hope. When these small, heart-centered changes begin to take root, the fast transforms from a physical exercise into a deeply nourishing spiritual journey, one that leaves traces of light long after the month quietly departs.